just gritty, nasty, dirty fun.
Hello, my name is Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. Now, what is it about the punk and the goth scene that is so appealing to queer kids? This week, I caught up with author, podcaster, and entrepreneur Demi Wylde to explore this very question. I got to find out all about his teen years growing up in the Southern California city Riverside and the refuge that he found at the Showcase Theatre, an alternative rock club in the neighbouring city of Corona, which was once described as the CBGBs of the West Coast. Basically, my impression of Southern California is essentially Gwen Stefani in the Just a Girl music video.
Kinda.
Am I far off?
Not far off at all.
So, did you grow up there?
I grew up mostly there, yeah. So I was born, as I said before, in like Central Valley, California, which is like Visalia, Fresno. It's all farmland, very small town. But I moved to Southern California. My grandmother lived there for a long time. And so we moved for her because she got very sick one year. And my parents ripped me out of like my middle of my sophomore year in high school. And I was forced to move to Southern California. So I was already very familiar with it. I visited my grandma a lot. But yeah, I was kind of like, I'm in a new place, and I was just getting comfortable where I was and all this stuff. So,
but was it kind of exciting? Because it was moving from like country, no, I mean, maybe not country, but like a small town
to bigger town. Yeah.
Was that not exciting, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was to a certain extent, but I also didn't know what I was in for, so it was a little scary.
Okay.
You know?
So was your high school then like not traumatic? Were you not just like, yay, I get to leave?
Okay. Well, so here's the thing. So my first high school that I was going to was actually the brand new high school. They had all the new equipment. They had all new classes and stuff, things that they didn't offer at the other schools and stuff. So we were the first class in that school. Very small class at first. I had a really great time there. I had a wonderful teacher, Mrs. Miller, who I absolutely just adore. She really took me under her wing and stuff, especially when I was going through some problems and stuff at home. That's actually where I found my love of poetry and writing, was through her. And when I was kind of ripped from that, it was a little bit traumatic. I was kind of like I was just getting really comfortable here and, really finding my way. However, I do appreciate what happened when I was moved into a different place, because it did kind of open up my world a little bit more. However you want to see it, the first experience that I had in the new school was I had just kind of assimilated into a group, and they had just told me that someone shot themselves on campus the year before.
Oh, so you went, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this particular high school, they just didn't offer as much. We had lockdowns all the time because people would bring guns to school. There was a big meth problem on campus, like drugs and stuff.
So what happens then in a lockdown? Like everyone's just locked in their classroom?
Everyone just locks in their classroom, gets under the table. And yeah, I mean, that happened at least once every 6 months.
Wow.
That I was there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. At times it was just drills, but the fact that we have to do
that's amazing,
like shooter drills is crazy. But that's pretty much what it was.
Wow. And a meth problem as well. So focusing on all the positives here.
The first time I ever did meth, I was like 17 years old, and I was like a junior in high school. And it was because my friends all had it. It was like, okay, like this is weird. But yeah, like very young. It was like on campus and stuff. You know, I have several friends, or not my friends, but like my friends' friends that have all died of, you know, because they just became addicted and, you know, from whatever, and went down a really dark path.
Holy hell.
So yeah, it was a very interesting, weird time. I don't think my mom knew that any of this stuff was going on. How could she? It was just convenient because the school was close to where I lived.
Yeah.
You know?
And so then, like, at what age was this when you moved?
I was probably 13.
Okay. And so
13, yeah.
Where were you on your burgeoning sexuality travels?
So I was closeted bisexual. I would hang out and date girls, quote unquote, but I never really did anything with them. I was definitely gay though. I've always been gay. I think I was just me kind of putting one toe in before I took the full plunge.
Where did the toe go?
I didn't stick my toe. I didn't stick anything in really. Except maybe a tongue here and there. So I think I kind of skipped one semester before. So I was like 14 or I was 13 and a half, 14. Dates, I have no idea. So I was around that time, 15 was when I had my first boyfriend. And, you know, we just kind of like kissed and held hands. You know, it was very romantic and very like PG. We would pass notes back and forth. That's actually how my mom found out I was gay. She found a note that my boyfriend had read.
Oh, what did it say? Do you know? Like,
it was just, I don't even remember what it said. It was just like, you're so cute, blah, blah, blah. You know, stupid stuff. We dated for a whole 2 weeks.
Okay, so you were serious.
A whole 2 weeks. Very serious. Yeah, very serious. And, you know, after that, I wanted to lose my virginity to him. And that just never happened. Yeah, unfortunately. You know, your first boyfriend, you're going to, you know, do the thing together and you're going to be together forever, blah, blah, blah. Fully, that was going on in my head the entire time. That didn't happen. So afterwards, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a slut. I'm going to lose it to whoever.
What a fortnight.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously after I was, you know, months of crying and wallowing, listening to No Doubt, Gwen Stefani, Don't Speak on repeat.
Oh yeah.
That was absolutely,
that was
absolutely a moment.
Song, yeah.
That's a great breakup song.
You know, there's that formula for how long it takes to get over a breakup. And it's like half the time.
That's not a real thing. Half the time that you guys were together. Yeah, no, I don't think it really counts, especially for a first love.
That's what I was going to say. Like, you were heartbroken if it was months and months of listening to Don't Speak.
It was probably 2 or 3 months, just straight up, like just secluded in my room. Yeah.
What did this guy do to you? And then at the end of that, then, so you were like, I'm not going to get back on the horse, or, well, I am going to get it back on the horse, but just, you know.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just no saddle.
Exactly. I didn't really have an opportunity until a friend of mine at school introduced me to another guy. She's like, well, this is our friend, so why don't you meet him? And, you know, so and so. And we dated for a while. Gorgeous boy. Oh, my God. And, he was captain of the color guard team, so he was, you know, very preppy.
What is color guard?
Color guard is the way they wave the flags, you know, for the...
God, America is so weird.
Organized, choreographed.
So it's not cheerleading. It's so
weird.
But it's kind of like...
It's not cheer... It's
do you march?
It's kind of cheerleading in a way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they march like with the drum band or with the band as well.
So but why is it called color
it's like
guard?
Part of that. Because the flags are colors, I think.
And they're guarding the flags?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
Okay, sorry.
It's just been part. I never questioned it. Yeah.
So anyway, you dated a massive flag bearer.
A massive flag, exactly. He was very different from the first boy because, like, the first boy was more like me, like very kind of punk and goth and, you know, just all black everything. Watched entirely too much Tim Burton. So he was kind of like, you know, the opposite of me. So I went through like a little preppy phase myself after that. Because as you do. And so we did it for the first time. It was like his birthday or something. He invited me over for a sleepover and all this stuff. And it was actually very romantic. I write about it in my blog. It was very sweet. It was a really great first experience for me. However,
at any point did you say, "I've got your birthday present here," and then unzip?
Got it right here. No, I should have though. That's a really great line.
Wow, what a wasted moment.
Missed opportunity. I will say I wasn't as witty as I am now. So I was definitely more guarded back then, color guarded. So yeah, I definitely, it was a great first experience. There was a little mishap that happened afterwards, but you can read about that later on. But
whetting our appetites.
So back to Showcase though. So as I said before, Showcase was a big part of my growing up, and me and my friend, my first group of friends, kind of invited me to this. Hey, we're gonna go to Showcase this weekend. You want to come with us? And it's like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. Like, well, it's this venue. Like all these bands play and stuff. It's pretty much all ages at the time. Like, even if it wasn't at time, we would still sneak in and stuff. It was very just whatever happens there. And it was in Corona, which is just the city over from where we were in Riverside. And Riverside's maybe an hour east from LA. Okay. It's not that far from LA at all. Maybe like an hour from Anaheim, Disneyland, all that stuff too. So it's very in that
And so
area.
is it like a distinct city, or does it just feel like the suburbs of LA?
It's its own kind of weird. It's mostly desert, truthfully. Okay. Don't be mistaken by the name Riverside. There's no river. It's dried up. Completely dried up. I think there was at one point, but it's very desert, kind of a college town. UC Riverside's kind of a big thing. And I went to community college out there as well. So it's big. The downtown area is a big college area. But as of that, yeah, it's mostly families and stuff, and not much going on.
But that's like kind of exciting when you're a teenager, like that kind of boredom.
Yeah, in a way. It's like, how much trouble can I get into? I was definitely that kind of kid. I'm like, what is this? I'm going to find something exciting to do, and it might be illegal.
Yeah, of course. 9 times out of 10. And so, sorry, I cut you off before. You were telling me about your friends who had suggested the place to you.
Right. So yeah, this particular group of friends, all my kind of like punk friends and stuff, they invited me for the first time to go when I was maybe like 15 or 16 or something. Actually, my first boyfriend, that group of friends. And so it took a little while for me to like warm up to it because I didn't even know what it was, but they would go there every weekend. So after a couple of weeks, I ended up going with them for the first time. And
sorry, do you mean like you were, when they first suggested it, you didn't want to do it?
Yeah, because I was very nervous. I didn't really know what it was. I didn't quite understand what was going on there.
And, so, like, because you would be breaking the rules, or why were you nervous?
No, I just small town boy. I didn't know what was going on. I'd never been to a concert before. I'd never been to a show. I'd never seen musicians play. I didn't know what it was. I was just very confused.
But you said earlier that you were a punky kid.
Yeah, more goth at that point. Okay. Like I loved music, but I'd never seen live music. You know what I mean?
And so you weren't just like chomping at the bit to go and see bands play.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it might have been more at first my mom's discretion, because I think I told her about it at one point, and then she's kind of like, I don't know about that.
Rookie mistake.
I know. Well, she had to drive me there. Aww. She had to drive me there. She was kind of like unsure about it too. So, I think it took a couple of weeks for her to kind of warm up and say, well, it's this new group of friends that I'm in. They go all the time. I'm sure it's safe. Can I please just go? And so she ended up taking me for the first time. And yeah, it was exactly how you'd expected it. I met them there. We saw this cool, interesting band play. Don't even ask me what it was. I have zero clue. I was very very early on. So
it was like 3 chords and shouting. Like, let's just assume that. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. That's pretty much any band that you would go and see. There was very just like gritty punk music with not good music at all. I started going quite often with them, and then actually it kind of maneuvered from that group of friends after we broke up to a different group of friends that still went. And it just kind of became our thing. Like we went all the time. We would occasionally see them there. And it was just fun. It was just something to do on the weekend because there wasn't really much else to do besides go to the mall.
Oh, going to the mall. That's just so American, isn't it? So then let's go back to your mum driving you there the first time.
Yeah.
Did you insist that she drop you off around the corner, or was she like...
No, she dropped me off right up front.
And like give you a sandwich bag?
Basically. I'd kiss her goodbye, and then she'd pick me up, and then she'd pick me up afterwards.
She'd pick you up.
My mom, as much as she objected at first, like my mom saw a lot of me in her. So my mom was definitely the party girl when she was young. And so, my mom might have been, maybe not exactly Showcase, but my mom might have been around a group of friends that would go to a place like Showcase or something like that. At first she objected, but then she was like, you know what, you have a group of friends. I'm just happy for you. And at least I'm taking you rather than you're going and sneaking out and stuff. You know what I mean?
But when she was picking you up, okay, so first of all, she was picking you up. So kudos to your mum.
I didn't start drinking there.
That's where I was going.
A little later. Yeah. And then it was actually around that time that my mom had a liquor cabinet. So I think my first time drinking was at a friend's house who lived just around the block from me. And I drank vodka and like threw up all night long. It was the worst thing. And then after a while, you kind of get used to it and stuff. And my mom had a liquor cabinet, so my friends would come over to my place, and then we'd kind of raid her liquor cabinet and fill it up with water afterwards.
I mean, it is a foolproof plan, right?
Completely. But, she also didn't quite care. She goes, as long as you're doing it here. She was that mom. She's a cool mom. And so then it's like, well, okay, I guess we have free reign. So we would come over after school and we would do this. And then eventually we did start sneaking it to Showcase with us. So that took a little while for us to start doing that. But yeah, like most of my friends at that point hadn't even drink for the first time yet, when we first started going. But then, yeah, eventually we started bringing booze in because they had a bar there, but that was only for the 21 and over. It was crazy. We had, 16-year-olds there with 25-year-olds in the same group, and there's a bar and all this. It was crazy. Like that wouldn't fly nowadays.
Yeah, isn't it weird what you just accept when you're 16? Like, this is totally legit. I'm here with a 30-year-old. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, completely.
And so, okay. So then she dropped you off. Do you remember that feeling of going through the doors and getting in there the first time?
No. I mean, it was just been so long ago, but I imagine it was kind of like, wow, I'm in a completely different realm now. And this is something that is kind of now I feel like I accept on a daily basis whenever I go to a new venue or something, or whenever I go to a new club or whatever. But back then it was kind of like, wow, this is a completely brand new experience for me. And it was just, my mom dropped me off. It was I don't know. It was just a very interesting time for me, and definitely a lot of crazy experiences happened afterwards. But I remember seeing my, I used to go to ska shows there a lot. So think No Doubt, Sublime, ska music, punk and reggae. And some crazy experiences there were I wanted to go see the ska band really bad. And so we would go. Voodoo Glow Skulls would play there. Oh my God, that was one of the best times of my life. Voodoo Glow Skulls.
I'm just smiling and nodding at this point.
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah,
Okay.
You can look them up later on. They're a really great ska band from like the early 2000s, 90s, whatever. But yeah. So my first ska show there. No one that I even knew was playing there at one point at that show, but I just knew I wanted to go to this because it was a ska night. And so me and my friends all went. We got liquored up and stuff, and one of our favorite things to do was jump in the mosh pit or the skank pit at the ska shows. And the mosh pit is basically the most violent, like people just shoving each other and punching each other and kicking each other's ass for no reason whatsoever. And I was just drunk enough that I got into the skank pit, and I'm gonna like just rage and have a blast. And I get in, and it basically goes around in a circle. It's like the world's most violent merry-go-round.
Because that's what I was going to ask. So what's the difference between a mosh pit and a skank pit? Is it just that one moves?
So a mosh pit's more, they all move. So a mosh pit's kind of just more like, a mosh pit's all arms. It's all like punching and kicking, or punching and elbows and stuff. Like you're like kind of just raging with your arms and stuff. A skank pit's all feet. So you're kind of like kicking and like, all that stuff too. But it all kind of goes around in a circle. It's like the world's most violent merry-go-round. So I get into the skank pit and I'm having a blast. I'm just like, yeah, this is fucking cool. Like this music's really good. And the next thing you know, I feel somebody's hands around my neck, like just grabbing my neck and choking the shit out of me. And I'm like, wait, what? And like, I grab his hands and I like rip them off and I like get out. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? And it was all like, it just continued going around in a circle. And I went back to my friends. I'm like, someone just choked me out in the skank pit. Like, it was wild, I'm like 16.
And so is there any resolution to this story?
No, not at all.
So did you find out who he was, or like?
No, because there was so many people in that thing. It was just going around in a circle. I didn't even. Yeah, there was no resolution whatsoever. It was just kind of a weird thing that happened there. Like some 20-year-old like choked me out, a 16-year-old.
Wow.
Just they got so into it, I guess.
Shit.
But yeah, it was. That's basically what happened at these shows and stuff. It was
extreme
violence, a little bit fun.
It's
just extreme and gritty and crazy, but as much crazy and weird and nuts as it was also just fun to do.
So I want to just follow this up before we go any further and ask: have you ever crowd surfed?
No, I wish I did not. I didn't have the balls enough to do that. Really,
no. Me either. Well, also, like, I mean, so I just have a general mistrust in human beings, but like, I'm also like really big, and I just would, I think I always talk to myself out of it. Like, I'd be too heavy for them. I'm just not going to bother.
You?
Yeah.
You look as skinny as I do.
But I'm like 6'3", so I just,
I don't think that really matters, because if you have enough people doing it, my fear is just falling. I don't like falling.
Well, yeah, there's that. But like if you're heavy, then people can drop you. That's my point.
That's not a thing that I really wanted to do, nor had any interest in doing. My thing was always just like getting drunk under the stairs with my friends and just like meeting people. That was like mostly what we did there.
But it would be interesting. It'd be an interesting sensation, I think. It's like doing those trust exercises when you're doing group building.
I think definitely, yeah.
But it's trust with a bunch of strangers who are also drunk.
Yeah. Okay. Here is one experience. Not exactly crowd surfing, but when I was doing drag in Seattle, I did my first choreographed routine with several dancers for the show. And I'm not a big dancer or everything, so I spent like weeks kind of perfecting this routine. And one of the things that we ended up doing was kind of a lift. So that was the only time I've ever been like kind of lifted by other people, but it was choreographed, and I was kind of spun around with my legs in the air, head back and everything. So it was a little crazy feeling at first, but we perfected it and we got it right. That's the only time that's ever like kind of happened though.
Oh, but that's very different because you've rehearsed it with these people and you've probably got their phone numbers as well. So like if they did do something, you could go around and like fuck them up, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I could sue them later on.
What, there's lots of problems with the question that I'm about to ask, so please do rip it apart. But being someone who being someone who's a fan of like a particular genre of music that isn't kind of mainstream gay, was there like a big overcoming of prejudice on your own behalf to go to gay bars?
So at first, yeah. So when I started going to gay bars when I was maybe 19, because there was an 18 over bar in Riverside that we would kind of go to, and then it might spend my 21st birthday at the other gay bar in Riverside. So yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of pop music. I've never like hated it or anything, but I'm just a very eclectic person. Like I love all kinds of music. I love music of any genre, really. But yeah, like my formative years, I was definitely kind of like more punk and rock and stuff oriented, but I still did find joy in certain pop music and you know, all alternative rock bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's super major artists and stuff too, like, you know, big name rock bands, you know, and stuff like that too. So there was like a pop aspect of my life too during that time. But yeah, I don't think there was really like a reconciliation of that, but because it just kind of like felt like a natural flow of direction, I guess, if you can think of it that way. But then there are certain bars and clubs that do play alternative music, if you will, or stuff like that I did find myself in, that I find myself enjoying just as much as I would enjoy a pop club, you know, or even a rock club. It just depends on the vibe of where you're at and like what you want to listen to. And, you know, sometimes I don't really want to listen to pop music. Sometimes I want to listen to something more melodramatic, you know.
More melodramatic than pop music? Are you talking like a power ballad?
Pop music is melodramatic, but it's melodramatic in a very broad sense. It's you know, kind of uplifting in a melodramatic way, if that makes any sense at all.
So do you mean like melodramatic? Oh, no, it doesn't make sense at all.
Okay, I'm trying to think of like a good song. Think of Dancing on Your Own by Robin.
Okay, I'm there.
Very sad song.
Yeah, so that's melodramatic.
That's melodramatic. Yeah.
So what? Like, what's more melodramatic than that?
Oh, like show tunes. I don't fucking know.
Are you into show tunes?
Absolutely not. I think that's the only music that I'm not into. Yeah, I'm not into show tunes.
It's so fascinating to me that people are into show tunes. Like, and it's something that I can like see from the outside, and I'm like, this should be everything that I love, because it's like, it's ridiculous. It's like self-indulgent, like it's so dramatic. Like, why don't I like it? But it's just, I'm just like, meh, yeah.
Okay. This is where I draw the line though. I love Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Okay.
Have you seen Hedwig?
Yeah, but
you don't care about it?
Yeah,
okay.
Just like, yeah, that was a film.
Literally a tattoo. I saw it on Broadway at some point.
Is that the Origin of Love thing?
Origin of Love, yeah.
Okay. See, I paid attention.
So, I mean, that's as close to a show tune, to a you know, as I can probably get. But that's still like a very rock ballad musical.
Okay. I mean, you know, I will say that I love Grease too. So, you know, I'm not incapable of loving musicals.
Not Grease 1.
No,
Grease 2.
Grease 1 is Grease 1 is awful. Grease 1 is sexist tripe. I mean, Grease 2 is sexist.
I've never seen Grease 2.
Well, I mean, it's sexist as well, but it's just in the other direction. So, and rather than a woman changing herself for a man changes himself for a woman. So it's like, I can get behind that.
I can get on board with that, yeah.
And the songs, you know, I mean, Score Tonight, which is supposed to be about bowling, but is really just about fucking. Reproduction, which is about reproduction. Do It for Our Country, which is about reproduction. You know, all these amazing songs.
Fascinating. I've never seen it, so
you're not going to rush out and see it, are you? Oh, fascinating! My voice has just gone up three semitones.
As you do when you're talking about show tunes.
Well, if anyone's listening and they have a good recommendation of a show, a musical that's better than Grease 2 and Hedwig, please do let us know.
Yeah, please. We'd love to hear it.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about then the people that you went to the showcase with. So at first it was with the group that were friends with your first 2-week boyfriend.
Right.
And then when that split, was it a bit weird to go there and see them? Like, were you just shunned from the group, or shunned is a strong word. Sorry.
Kind of for a while. Kind of for a while, because it was just kind of awkward to see them there. However, I was going with another group of friends, so we just kind of avoided each other. It wasn't a big deal. Eventually, we did kind of like assimilate, and it was okay. He stopped going, so it was kind of like whatever. But yeah, I would go mostly with my friends Leah and Brittany, and my friend Brittany's other friend, and Amanda occasionally. So it was just like mostly like the four of us. Amanda was like back and forth between the two groups. So, and then we would always like meet somebody there. We never got phone numbers or anything, but it was always just like meet somebody there, because it's kind of like what you would do is just meet and hang out with strangers for a little while and get drunk.
And so, Len, were most of your friends female at that time?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, I didn't really have any gay friends until I was like 20.
Okay.
20. I did get hit on one time there, actually, by a cute punk kid named Alfredo. That was the only time that happened. I did get his number that night. But I think he was doing heroin or something at the time, and it just wasn't a thing that I wanted to pursue. Yeah, there was a lot of that going on too. There was a lot of drug use and stuff during that time too. It was not necessarily by me, but the people that I was around. And not so much my friend group either, but it was just always there at the venue. Like, people would just get like doing whatever in the bathroom stalls or whatever. It's just very gritty, very nasty. Just kind of that culture of like, you know, how fucked up can we get, you know?
And something that you kind of just become used to, don't you?
Yeah, I never thought anything about it really.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, so you said that when you were younger, you were really gothy, and then you got into like that punk and ska scene. And it's kind of something that's quite common, I suppose, for queer kids.
Definitely, yeah.
So this is the point in the interview where I ask you to speak on behalf of all queer goths and punks. Do you have any kind of theories about what it is about those kind of scenes that it's appealing to queer kids?
I think it's just that sense of otherness that I think is inherent in all of us, and the anti part of ourselves that are kind of like, well, if we're not going to assimilate, then we might as well just go the opposite direction, just counter it completely. Yeah. And especially when you're young and you're kind of like forming your identity and stuff, and you really start understanding that like, there's no place for me in this kind of homogenous part of the world that you know is heteronormative and all this stuff. There's not really a place for me. And so I'm just going to go where all the other weirdos hang out. And it's definitely interesting, I think, from a sociological and like psychological perspective. But I think that's the closest I can think of like why people gravitate, like why queer people gravitate to that type of thing. It's just that kind of inherent sense of otherness.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating for me about punk is that for much of the same reasons I'm assuming, it was also very appealing to cis white men of a certain age.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to talk about this club. And I'm making lots of assumptions here, so do correct me if I'm wrong. But thinking about those kind of spaces where queer kids are bristling. They're up against groups of straight white men who are like, speaking very broadly, the worst kind of human beings.
Yeah. It's probably who choked me out, truly.
I mean, like, you bringing that up kind of made me think of that. Like, how was it being in that club? And did it always feel safe despite the fact that they were there?
I never really thought about it like that because I always imagined it as a place where people go just to listen to music. And I mean, music's the great equalizer. Everyone loves music. It doesn't matter what kind of music you love. Everyone loves music. There are a few people that don't, and those people are weird.
That's so weird.
Music's just kind of like the great equalizer. I would hang out with the straight guys. I would hang out with the girls, and it didn't really matter who you were because we were all there for the same thing. So I never really felt my safety really in jeopardy or anything there. I felt more at home there than I did in Riverside walking down the street, I felt more, there had been times where my safety had been in jeopardy just in Riverside walking down the street because it was all very straight. Now I think it's like borderline MAGA people are kind of out there a lot. It's just really weird.
In California?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in bigger cities, it's less apparent, but if you go outside of cities and stuff, like for instance, when I was just in Kingsburg visiting my grandparents, they're hardcore Republicans and everyone around has Trump flags and all this stuff. And my aunt is completely brainwashed and all this crazy stuff. So
your lesbian aunt?
No.
Oh,
so
okay.
my other aunt.
Sorry. No, your lesbian aunt.
Not your lesbian aunts or Trump supporters. What? No. They're fully liberal people. But my grandmother, my grandfather less so. I mean, he's a supporter, but he's not loud about it. My aunt, however, I never really had an issue with her whatsoever. She was actually very close with me, and she actually informed a lot of my spirituality and a lot of like the stuff that I'm into now. However, over the past several years, she's kind of experienced a lot of trauma, going through a lot with her husband and her health. And I think that all that has kind of informed, and plus the Fox News cycle has just really kind of brainwashed her. And she's a completely different person now than she was. In fact, my aunts were telling me that she was afraid that I was going to come and like storm their property at one point with all my Antifa money and like just crazy. I'm like, what? Like, that's insane.
It's so weird.
So she's got these crazy ideas now that really are unlike her from my perspective. So there's a lot of that in California. There's a lot of good things though too.
What were we talking about?
I forgot to. I was hoping you remember.
Oh shit. Well, whilst we ponder it, I just want to talk about. I read an article the other day, and it's so depressing about how I think it was from an American-based publication about how white gay men are more likely to be Republicans than they are anything else, and it's just so depressing. It's like
gay men, really?
Yeah. It's just like, can you not just pick up a history book? It's so frustrating.
Well, luckily that's not really my experience, but and that's not really the people that I know or communicate with. Oh, I remember what we were talking about. We were talking about safety.
Safety. Oh, right. Yeah.
So,
because for me, so when I was growing up, I went to lots of, I wouldn't really say punk, but like a more that kind of post-grungy type thing. But I grew up in Australia, and Australia is got this kind of really macho culture. And so
it does,
you kind of have to you have to really point out when someone's a fag. It's kind of a sport. So my experience in those kind of spaces at gigs and things was to just be very like othered by the people there. But you're saying that's not what happened to you.
I mean, at least there at Showcase, that was not the case. You know, I think maybe occasionally somebody might say something to me, but I would always brush it off. It wasn't even like a blip on my radar. I'm like, whatever, thanks, bye. But I think when I was just walking down the street in Riverside, that was where I really had that experience where, you know, at times people would just drive by in their pickup trucks and like throw cans of soda at me for no reason and shout fag for no reason. Like that was just really bad stuff would happen there. And, you know, my mom never understood it. She never got it. I don't even think she really knew that was kind of happening to me, because it was just kind of like that thing that's like, well, this is what I'm dealing with, you know?
It's hard as well, because when those things happen to you, like you're kind of socialized to think, oh, it's your fault, so you shouldn't really complain.
Right, exactly. So, and especially because of the way I dressed and stuff, you know, I did kind of other myself to a certain extent, you know, just with the way I dressed and stuff. You know, I'd wear a lot of black, and I'd wear, you know, bangles and jewelry and stuff. So I definitely was different than what people saw on a normal basis. I didn't fit in. I didn't try to fit in. I didn't want to fit in. And so, but when I was at a place like Showcase, that was where I felt completely more myself than anything, even though I was around, you know, certain macho straight people and stuff. Like we were all there for the same thing. We were all there for music. We were all, you know, I never was really bothered there. I was just got bothered walking down the street by the pickup trucks, you know.
So people are such assholes. And so what happened? Like, when did you stop going to Showcase?
I think I stopped going probably around like 17 or so. I was probably 19 when it closed down. We stopped going probably around when we graduated, truthfully. Because or even just before. So I didn't finish high school. I actually dropped out my senior year. There was no way I was going to graduate whatsoever. I was a senior, supposed to have 220 credits. I had 75, just because I was very like anti-school. The only classes that I really cared about were theater, were English, and occasionally like, you know, artsy classes and stuff, like my art classes and stuff. But I didn't care about math. I refused to do it. I refused to do homework even. I was like, I'm here at school to learn. I'm not learning. So why would I need to bring shit home for me to learn when I'm not learning it? It's just, I was just very like, this isn't what I want to learn, so I'm not going to do it. So I would just fall asleep in class. I was really just anti-school.
Oh, wow.
Really, really bad student. Yeah. Just because, like, I think, I don't know how it is in Europe, but I think you guys might have a little bit better of a school system than we do. Our school system is conveyor belt, learn this, regurgitate, and pass. Like, that's pretty much all it is.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of what school has become for everyone. I was just such a square. I was just like, yeah, I'll totally learn this. I'm going to go off and do it now.
See, not me. I was always a more abstract minded. Like, I would love my art classes. I would love acting. I would love, singing and stuff like that. I was just very kind of like a creative person. My biggest thing that I would always do was writing. So like I would always, my English classes were always like my best classes.
Mm-hmm. So, oh, hang on. Where really need to keep. So you didn't finish. How did we get here? You didn't finish high school,
right? But, yeah.
Oh, when it closed.
When it closed, yeah. I think we probably stopped going just before the first semester of junior year, because I think it kind of started slowing down for us. We started kind of just doing more adult things. I think I got my first job when I was 17, just after I dropped out. So it was around that time that we just like kind of stopped hanging out there. And plus it closed down 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember hearing about it closing down?
Yeah. In fact, I think my friend Brittany was the one that told me that it closed down, and she was really sad about it. And, I was like, oh, like, well, the place was gross. So it was only a matter of time, really. But at one point, so my friend Brittany, a really good friend of mine. At one point, she wanted to do a documentary about Showcase. And she started getting in contact with a lot of like the bands that had played there, a lot of people that were in charge of running the place, and started kind of like coordinating this effort to make a documentary about this location. And it was around that time that she and I actually visited again. And because I think I was living in Seattle at the time, I was maybe like 23 or 24. And I was visiting, and we decided to go hang out there and saw the old venue and stuff. I think I still have a picture of me like lying down in front of it, just like on the floor. That was like the last time that we were there, and I think she and I both like took a pen and like wrote our names on the wall or something like that, because a bunch of people had started doing that.
But so that was the last time you were there then, like after it had closed, and it had been closed for a few years.
Yeah.
What was that like going back?
It was very nostalgic. Especially because it's just like, wow, like we spent so much time here. We saw so many cool bands and stuff. And at the same time, I didn't remember any of it because, we were drunk for most of it, or, just young. It had been a long time at that point. And, but it was just a lot of like really good experiences and a lot of like really good, times there that we had. And it was just very nostalgic being back,
Like, so thinking back from where you're at now, what did that venue mean to you, and how did it help shape who you are?
Well, it really allowed me a space to explore, perhaps even a more darker part of myself, which is, definitely something that I work with now. I mean, I definitely work a lot with like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's pretty much my aesthetic, but it definitely allowed me a space to kind of like just be myself and just have fun, which in a place where I didn't really feel like I fit in either. And when I was looking for a place to, either escape from real life or just be around people who were interested in the same stuff I was, it just offered me that type of place. And it was a great time. It was a great venue. I wish it would come back, because I would totally go today if it were still around.
So let's just say for a second that you got the opportunity to go back to Showcase for the night, and you happen to run into your 16-year-old self there who's getting drunk underneath the stairs. Would you have a conversation with him? And if the answer is yes, what advice would you give him?
I gotta really think about this. I would say, number one, be careful with drinking, because you have a tendency to go a little too far at times. Not so much these days, luckily, but just keep putting yourself out there. And I know that kid under the stairs had a hard time talking to people at times. And I think that he shouldn't have fear of what other people would think about him should he talk to them. In fact, I think that's what held him back for a long time was not being able to express himself, or to be afraid of what other people might think about him if he did talk to somebody. So I would tell him, number one, maybe lay off on the drinking at times. Just be careful with it. And then number two, don't be afraid to talk to people, because you never know who you might actually meet and who you might connect with. My whole thing is that, it took me a long time to just talk to people normally, and, to really kind of put myself out there. And, even something like this would have been something very difficult for me to do back then, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't really have those social skills. I still don't know if I have those social skills now.
Every day's a battle. I think it's really good advice, and it's really fascinating, because I think I have had a really similar thing where just was terrified of people and the way that they responded to what I had to say. And I think I learned quite quickly that people were kind of a bit like, what the fuck are you talking about? So would just not talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me years to just get to the point where I was like, okay, if you don't get what I'm talking about, that's cool. And I can just move on to the next person and see if they get what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
But for years was just crippled by that fear.
That just fear of
Yeah.
rejection, of just people not getting you. And, you know, even though you're in a place where people are there for the same thing as you, it was still difficult for me at times to even just talk to another person. I would mostly just hang out with my friends in like this little clique over here. We would hardly ever, they more than I would meet other people, but we mostly just stuck to each other. And like, you know, that was just kind of how it was. But yeah, it's a very difficult thing. Like when you're young, especially if growing up from a small town, and, you know, I had a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts and feelings, and that necessarily didn't resonate with other people that much. And, or people just didn't get it, or, you know, whatever, especially my family. Yeah. So it just added a lot of like, social anxiety to the mix. And, you know, I'm in a social situation now, and I'm still kind of like, do I even want to be here? You know, but at the same time, I love socializing.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like I love doing this podcast, but in the hours like before an interview, I'm always just like, oh, they're going to hate me. Oh, we're not going to get along. Oh, it's going to be awful. I just don't know. Or like, should I just cancel? Why am I even bothering? And it's just so interesting. These things that are hardwired in you, because I know people who are just deathly dull and so boring, but have no self-awareness and don't even think about the other person. Are just enjoying the fact that they get to talk about themselves. And I'm just like, no, they're gonna perceive me. They're gonna judge me.
Well, it's always really funny, like, especially because I find you a very fascinating interviewer, because you're actually like this is a very intimate conversation. I love that whenever I get to do this type of stuff. When you make that connection to somebody, and, you know, it is kind of intimate, and like, yeah, you're talking about yourself and stuff. It doesn't feel forced, you know, it's a totally different thing. But yeah, it's just talking's hard.
Oh, okay. So hang on. We keep meandering. So the advice is about drinking and being a bit bolder.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he would listen to you?
Probably not. He didn't listen to anybody back then. But I think that he also does have a heart, and he also does have a very interesting mind. So perhaps if it was told to him, you know, authentically, I think he was a kid that could read authenticity pretty well.
What if you told him in song?
Maybe. Fuck if I know how to write a song, though.
I mean, it's 3
maybe
chords.
in a poem.
Like, just to do a punk song. Come on.
I could write him a poem, maybe.
Do you have any memories from the mosh pit, or from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories. Go to lostspacespodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me what you got up to. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. For more on Demi, visit his website, dimitriwylde.wixsite.com, or follow him on Twitter at Demi Wylde, and that's spelled DEMITRIWYLDE. And he's also got a number of projects that you should definitely investigate, which includes the poetry book, All Was Nothing in the Time of Champions, his 2 blogs, Hookup Horror Stories, and A Deviant's Guide to Sex, and his podcast, A Cosmic Journey with Demi and Jay. So, side note, I know this is all a whole bunch of information that I've just thrown at you, and I will make sure to include links in the show notes for this program. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, Well-Groomed Boys, which is also playing underneath my talking right now on all streaming platforms. If you like this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast player of choice, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen to. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.